Well, welcome back to the Community Christian Podcast. We just finished up our series on the book of Esther. Will, this has been a really cool series. Talk to us about it a little bit.
First of all, I just love the history. There's the dates, the names, right? We see the Persian Empire here. We're like, again, it's just, there's so much detail here. It's history. It's not fairy tale. And, if you missed Esther, the 2 weeks that we did on it, go back and watch it, because obviously we can't fill in the whole story here. But ultimately, the book ends, this piece of history, with God's people having this incredible defeat, where God just turns it. What was meant to harm them ends up being to their benefit. And so I want to read the scripture we used at the memory verse this last week. And so Mordecai, who's kind of the leader in this, ends up exalted into a high position as a godly man. Because of this victory, it says, he told them, this is Esther chapter 9 and verse 22, he told them to celebrate these days with feasting and gladness, and by giving of gifts of food to each other and presents to the poor. This would commemorate the time when God's people gained relief from their enemies, when their sorrow were turned into gladness and their mourning into joy. And I'm just reminded, like, there's moments we see throughout the history and scripture of celebration.
Yeah.
There's moments that we have coming up where we celebrate things. We have Christmas, which is a worldwide thing, really. And it's a moment to stop and celebrate that God comes in the flesh. Jesus is God, right? Emmanuel, scripture says, means God in the flesh. Or we have this national holiday here in the States of Thanksgiving, when the idea is to stop and to recognize that we have a good God and that we need to be thankful. And so you and I have talked about that a lot, and you have really led our team this year saying, hey, I want this season, we've talked about this a little bit, to be a really sweet time. As Mordecai ends, he said, this is a time of joy, recognizing that God has done some things for us. And that's what we want this season to be. And in fact, you started reworking some of the older songs that the church has traditionally used to celebrate Christmas, and been thinking about the worship night and what we do around Thanksgiving. And you incorporated our creative team. And in fact, some of that music's coming out on Friday.
Yeah. We have the Christmas EP, Glory to the King, coming out this Friday. I'm really excited about it. I think we're all really excited about it.
I've got a chance to listen to it, and it's just, my kids are in the Christmas spirit already. I came in the other day, and they've got Christmas music on. And I'm like, oh, you got to listen to what the creative team in Austin did, because they're loving it. They're wanting to sing those songs already.
Yeah, I've been singing them all year since January, so I'm ready.
You're ready to go.
I'm ready. I tell people this is really the best album I've done because I didn't write it.
I love that.
People wrote it. I mean, years and years.
Yeah,
and
some
years
of these
ago. They're all in the public
century,
domain, right? And they have just stuck with us for a long time, and there's a reason for that, because there are great theological truths in all of these songs. The melodies are awesome. So my hope with the songs was to keep them as close to the original as possible, while updating the sound. And my producer really helped with that. But yeah, I really just sang these songs. That's about it. And we're going to sing them together this year as a church. And yeah, we're really excited.
Yeah,
about that.
I'm excited. We're going to sing them together in a few weeks. You've had some other worship pastors say, hey, can I get that arrangement of that song? I mean, this is done for the church, for Community Christian, but then we know that this is going to have an larger influence. And, we're going to give the church access to the songs. We're going to help them get that out to their friends. We're going to sing these songs. And in fact, I want you to know, the whole Christmas season in December, the title is Glory to the King. That's the title for our teaching series.
Right.
And what we're going to do is go back to those songs that have so much biblical truth and solid theology. This is who God is. This is what Christmas means, right? And we're going to teach through those. And that's going to be our Christmas season, is this idea of Glory to the King. So before we move on in the discussion, explain why you picked Glory to the King, what that means for you this year for our church.
Yeah, I was praying through it this summer as I was recording it, and this title came up, Glory to the King, and it's really just the reminder that, we are blessed to have this season of Christmas. It's such a joyous and fun time, but oftentimes we forget who it's about, and we just need to be reminded as followers of Christ that it's all here because of Him. Like, we have hope, we have joy, we have peace, we have love in our lives because of Christ.
Yeah.
And so it's really just that reminder, all glory to King Jesus. And that's what these songs are truly about. And that's what we're going to get back to, the heart of that worship.
Yeah. I truly believe something powerful is going to happen in the church during this time if we keep that focus. It's glory to the King. So despite whether this is a struggle with family time or work or year ends with finances and budgets for people, there's a lot that will distract us.
Yeah.
No. This time is set aside to bring glory to him. And despite what's happening, there is hope and there is joy and there is peace offered in Jesus. In fact, we'll celebrate that in a thing called Advent. We'll do that during that time to remember these aspects of who Jesus is. But I'm preparing our hearts to try and say, okay, God, we want this to be a sweet time. We're asking for it. We're asking you to protect that for the church, despite what happens and goes on in the world over the next couple months.
Yeah.
Man, glory to the King. You are still on the throne.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about Esther. And so this idea of celebration happens because Esther and Mordecai are courageous. They do something God asked them to do. Esther is given a position as the queen to make a request that ultimately saves her people. And so you found at the beginning of the year, and I remember talking about this with you in January, you felt like the word for you this year was courage, or to be courageous. And that's really what Esther was called to.
Yeah. So every year I ask the Lord for a word, and this year was courage. And when you hear the word courage from the Lord, you're kind of like, uh-oh.
What's coming?
Like what's going on? And something that you talked about this last Sunday was, what are the three, almost phases or requirements of courage? And it's to have obedience, to have faith, and then to be dependent. And I would say the hardest one is dependence, because the first two with obedience and faith, obedience is really just saying yes to whatever that thing is that God is calling you towards. And sometimes you can muster up the strength to just say, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then you have to lean into the faith part of it and say, God, I'm going to trust you with this, whether it's I need the finances to get through this, or I need the people or resources or whatever to accomplish what you need. I'm going to trust that you're going to provide that. But then the dependence part is absolutely the hardest part, because when you get to that spot of the spot of courage and having courage, you're really saying, to do this, Lord, I actually can't, I can't do it on my own. And I have to 100% depend on who you are. I have to 100% depend on your promises. And I have to say, you've got this. And I'm just here.
Yeah.
Just use me as I am, basically. I'm going to trust in you. I'm going to put my faith in you. I've already said yes to you. And I'm dependent on you fully 100% to see how your power is going to be shown. Not mine, but your power, for your glory, for your kingdom. Because so often, when we want to be courageous and want to take these faith steps, sometimes we can say, unintentionally it becomes about us, right? But the dependent part is where God says, don't forget, it's about me. Yeah. It's for my glory. Yeah. And I love you, and I'm going to use you in this process, and thank you. It's going to be awesome. But you need to depend on me because I'm a good father, and I love you, and I've got you.
Yeah.
And and one thing that I've carried with me over the years that I've needed to learn is that there's nothing more that I could do to make God love me more.
Yeah,
right?
That's part of the promises. That's part of the faith piece. Hey, when I step out in courage, whatever it is it to love well? Is it to forgive? Is it to let go of bitterness? When I follow the way of Jesus, when he gives me a kingdom vision, for some of you in our church, God's given you a kingdom vision of something he wants you to do or to take a stand on, or to say, hey, this is evil and wrong in our society, and we know there can be a lot of pushback on that. When you have to step out and be courageous, that first part of obedience, what is God calling me to do this, right? The second part is faith, and that I've got to trust on his promises. And I know, okay, if this blows apart or people get upset or somehow I fail at this first attempt, and again, we don't always know exactly where God's leading. We just know where to be obedient. Right. Then I've got to trust I'm still loved. I'm still his child. I'm cared for. The promises of he will never leave me or forsake me. Those things we have to hold on to in that process of courage.
Right.
And I think what you said about the dependence part, when God calls us in courage to things as people who believe in him, those things are beyond us.
Yes.
Those things are things that can only be done in the Spirit. And so it's often, when we step out, we want to know we have control of it. We want to know we can get to the end goal. But the kind of faith here, Esther, man, she needs the king to respond in a certain way when she approaches him. and she can't control that. So
No.
she needs God to work in that, and God had already put her in that position, and so it's scary. But the dependence part, um, it's a scary part,
Hmm.
but it is the most faith filled.
Yeah.
It really is. It's
Yep.
because you get to see God work, to be in that dependent place, to be being stretched beyond myself. Oh man, it's the place where we encounter God. For me, it has
Yeah.
been like nothing else. Where I have to daily wake up and go, I need you to God today. I need you to work. I need you to do this. I
Yeah.
need you to be in this meeting. I need you to change my heart. Like it just, as much as it's difficult and you can feel the weight of the moment, dude, I look back and I cherish those moments. And I want to be more dependent on God
Hmm.
on a daily basis, on the days even when I feel like I have it all under control, because that's the sweet spot.
It is. It's the hardest because that's where fear really starts to come in. But, I think you said that this is Sunday that, God doesn't call the fearless, he calls the courageous. I mean,
Yeah.
it's okay to be fearful. I mean, it even says in the Bible that, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom and
Hmm.
understanding, right? So there's like this element of fear that takes place in us, but God, doesn't let it go too far to where it gets to be where it says don't have fear, where it gets skewed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Yeah. I
dependence
mean,
is
if we look
tough.
at Esther's story, absolutely there's fear.
Hmm.
There's concern. How's this going to play out? Is my family, are my people going to be annihilated? I've got to go to the king and I'm going to approach him without an invitation, which means he could have me executed on the spot.
Yeah.
There's so much fear. The fear is very real, but so is the aspect of God. I need you in this. I know I'm being obedient. I know you've called me to this, and I'm going to trust that you're with me. That's the promise. Okay. And I know this is beyond me. I'm in over my head, and I need you to work here. And
Yeah.
that's where amazing faith comes out. And we need people in our current culture who are going to stand like Esther, who are going to step out and be courageous, who are going to trust in God to
Hmm.
to do things beyond what they can do on their own, because that's when it gets powerful. And we know it's
Totally.
God, and there's no way to walk through that and say, I did it.
Yeah.
No, right? It's no, God is working. And we're seeing that in our church, in people's
Yeah.
lives. And it's amazing. And it's so clear to look at some of these things and go, that's a God thing. God is moving there. That is beyond us. And again, that's the sweet spot.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to close with the scripture from Psalm 31, and I hope this is an encouragement to you. It says, "Be strong and let your heart be courageous, all who put your hope in the Lord."
Hmm.
I mean, that's it right there. With whatever the Lord is leading you in, and you have to say, "Yes, Lord, I'm going to be obedient. I'm going to put my trust in you. I'm going to have faith, and then I'm going to depend on you. Put your hope in Him because He does not fail. He does not let us down. And let your heart be courageous
Yeah.
in whatever you do."
Absolutely. And some of you, I got to tell you, we're going to start a series on Family Sunday for 3 weeks this
Mm.
coming Sunday. And the idea is, how do we deal with, God says, here's the ideal of how we treat each other and how he designed family, but here's the reality of how we often fail. And how
Yeah.
do we deal with that gap? And for some of you, it's going to be in the next 3 weeks in the things of the family that God's going to say to you, you got to be courageous. You got to invite me into it. I want to
Yeah.
do something new and something fresh and something redeeming and restoring in your family. So we look forward to seeing you Sunday.